You are standing in a shopping mall, choosing a new shirt. At the next counter, you scan a payment code for the smartphone you have wanted for months. The screen confirms the purchase, and both items are yours within seconds. It feels almost effortless. But long before banks, coins, prices, or digital payments, our ancestors still wanted sharp tools, warm hides, rare ornaments, and food from distant places. What did they give in return, and why would another community accept the deal? Convenience hides the machinery underneath it. Now remove the phone, the bank account, the price tag, and every written number. Imagine two communities meeting after months apart. Each has something the other may need, but neither has money to settle the exchange. There is no receipt, no fixed price, and no court waiting to enforce a promise. They must judge the goods, agree on value, and decide whether the people in front of them can be trusted. That was the real challenge behind trade before money. Trust had to carry that weight. Archaeologists enter the story through objects found far from their natural sources. A marine shell can appear deep inland. A tool made from obsidian, a dark volcanic glass that breaks into razor-sharp edges, can turn up hundreds of kilometers from the nearest volcano. Such finds prove that material moved. They do not reveal how. The object may have been traded, gifted, inherited, carried by a migrant, transferred through marriage, or taken during conflict. The journey survives more clearly than the human agreement. That gap is the heart of the mystery. The easy answer is barter. One side offers meat, the other offers stone, and both walk away satisfied. Direct swaps almost certainly happened, but they were only one option. People could share food within a camp, give gifts to strengthen an alliance, return help months later, pool goods for the whole community, or grant access to water and hunting grounds. The method changed with the relationship. Close relatives, trusted neighbors, distant partners, and complete strangers did not follow the same rules. No single rule covered every encounter. Inside a local group, exchange may have looked more like sharing than buying. A successful hunt could produce more meat than one household could eat before it spoiled, while another family returned with almost nothing. Dividing the food reduced waste and spread the risk of hunger. The hunter who fed others today might be injured tomorrow or simply have bad luck. This pattern is inferred from archaeology and comparative anthropology, not recorded in a prehistoric ledger, but it offers a practical explanation for cooperation. Cooperation could turn uncertainty into resilience. Repayment did not need to be immediate, equal, or made in the same material. Someone who received food might later repair a spear, gather useful plants, guide a journey, care for an injured relative, or help build a shelter. The return arrived when it was useful, not when a price tag demanded it. This delayed exchange solved a problem that makes simple barter awkward. The receiver did not need to own exactly what the giver wanted at that same moment. Time itself became part of the bargain. In a small community, memory could serve as the account book. People knew who regularly contributed, who kept promises, and who accepted help while avoiding every obligation. Reputation traveled through relatives, visitors, and marriage partners. A dependable person gained easier access to support, information, and safe passage. Someone known for deception could lose those options. There was no written contract, yet repeated contact rewarded honesty and made cheating expensive. In a small network, patterns of behavior were difficult to hide. A promise lived or died publicly. What moved between people? Durable goods included obsidian, flint, pigments, shells, beads, and finished tools. Far more may have vanished: dried meat, fish, hides, baskets, rope, glue, medicines, and materials for making fire. People could also offer labor, technical knowledge, protection, directions to water, or permission to use a shelter or hunting area. Stone and shell dominate museums because they survive. The everyday goods that mattered most may have decayed without leaving a trace we can recognize. The missing record was probably enormous. Exchange could involve whole communities, not only two individuals. Several households might contribute hides, food, tools, or ornaments before a seasonal meeting with another group. What returned could then be shared among many families or stored for later use. In that setting, the community itself became part of the transaction. The aim might be better stone, access to a route, help during shortage, or the renewal of an alliance. One meeting could support both immediate survival and a relationship meant to last. Trade could therefore strengthen the group itself. There was no prehistoric currency accepted everywhere. Different regions recognized different valuables. High-quality obsidian mattered where sharp stone was scarce. Marine shells could be prized far from the coast. Pigments, hides, ornaments, or expertly made tools might circulate within a regional network. These objects were not automatically money. People valued them because they were useful, rare, portable, durable, beautiful, or socially meaningful. Some were also attractive because another community was likely to accept them again. Value belonged to networks, not humanity. Picture two communities meeting at a river crossing they visit every dry season. Someone related to both groups may introduce the visitors and lower the risk of violence. The goods are handled, weighed in the hand, and checked for cracks or poor workmanship. A small exchange can test the relationship before anything more valuable changes hands. If both sides behave fairly, the next meeting becomes easier. Trust grows from remembered behavior, and the meeting itself becomes part of what both sides are protecting. Caution and cooperation worked side by side. Not every encounter ended well. One side could reject damaged goods, demand an immediate swap, refuse future contact, or warn neighboring communities. Objects also changed hands through theft, coercion, raids, migration, and marriage. That is why archaeologists often use broad words such as exchange or movement when the exact mechanism is unknown. A shell found far from the sea records a connection. It does not tell us whether that connection was friendly, forced, or somewhere between the two. Movement alone never reveals the moral story. A material could travel enormous distances without one merchant completing the entire route. A community near an obsidian source might collect large blocks, keep what it needed, and pass the rest to neighboring partners. Those partners could divide the stone again, use part of it, and send smaller pieces onward. After several transfers, a blade might reach people who had never seen the volcano. Many short relationships could create one long network, while every transfer changed the object's size, shape, and story. Distance was assembled one relationship at a time. At Olorgesailie in southern Kenya, archaeologists found long-distance movement in deposits dating to roughly 320,000 to 295,000 years ago. Toolmakers there used obsidian, the sharp volcanic glass, even though the local basin had no source of it. Chemical analysis linked pieces to more distant outcrops. People either traveled farther, met other communities, or did both. The stone reveals connection, but not the payment. It cannot tell us whether food, labor, gifts, or nothing at all changed hands. The evidence stops exactly where bargaining begins. At Qafzeh Cave in present-day Israel, marine shells and red ochre appear in layers about 92,000 years old. The cave lies inland from the Mediterranean coast, and some shells seem to have been selected or modified for display. They may have served as ornaments, gifts, or signs of identity. What matters is the journey. People carried socially meaningful objects away from their natural source. Whether the shells were collected, exchanged, or passed through relationships remains an open question. Meaning traveled even when usefulness was uncertain. Franchthi Cave in Greece adds the sea to the story. Obsidian found there came from Melos, an island in the Aegean. By the closing stages of the Ice Age and into the Mesolithic, people were moving this stone from the island toward the Greek mainland. Reaching the source required boats, navigation, or contact with communities able to cross open water. The obsidian records a maritime network, and it also points to knowledge of routes, seasons, and safe places to land. The route mattered as much as the stone. Farther east, sites in New Ireland, part of Papua New Guinea's Bismarck Archipelago, contain obsidian brought from sources on New Britain. Some of that movement dates back about 20,000 years. Open water separated the islands, so the stone had to cross the sea. Repeated finds suggest durable connections rather than one accidental voyage. Island communities maintained roots, knowledge, and relationships strong enough to keep valuable material moving across the archipelago for generations. These links had to be renewed repeatedly. Ostrich eggshell beads reveal a different network. Each bead had to be cut, drilled, shaped, and polished. Between about 50,000 and 33,000 years ago, similar bead-making traditions appeared across parts of eastern and southern Africa, spanning roughly 3,000 kilometers. No single traveler needed to cover that distance. The pattern fits a chain of connected communities through which objects, techniques, styles, and social identities moved gradually over generations. A tiny bead could carry belonging as clearly as material wealth. Style became evidence of social connection. In Neolithic Europe, ornaments made from Spondylus shell traveled from seas around southeastern Europe deep into the continent. Craftspeople turned the bright shell into bracelets, beads, and pendants found far from any coast. Their appeal was probably more than practical. Such objects could signal identity, status, alliance, or participation in a wider social world. They may have moved through gifts, marriage ties, specialist exchange, or several routes at once. Their distribution mapped relationships that no written record preserved. The shells became markers of distant belonging. A much later example appears in the Hopewell networks of pre-contact North America. Obsidian found at sites in Ohio and Illinois has been traced to sources near Yellowstone and in present-day Idaho, more than 1,000 kilometers away. Other valued materials also arrived from distant regions. These objects probably moved through gatherings and linked communities rather than one central market. The scale is striking. Without minted money, regional relationships could carry goods across a large part of a continent. Scale did not require coins to exist. How do researchers trace these journeys? Obsidian from different volcanoes contains slightly different combinations of elements, giving each source a chemical fingerprint. A tool can be tested and matched with known outcrops. Shells, metals, pigments, teeth, and bones can sometimes be studied through geological or isotope analysis. Researchers then map where objects appear and how their quantity changes with distance. Science can identify origins with remarkable precision, but it cannot recover the words spoken when the object changed hands. The chemistry is precise, the motive is not. Other clues narrow the possibilities. Production waste near a quarry shows where stone was first worked. Smaller tools farther away may suggest repeated division, use, and resharpening. Repair marks show that an object remained valuable for a long time. Burials may point to symbolic meaning, while storage areas may suggest organized collection. Isotopes and ancient DNA can track human movement. The strongest case appears when several clues converge, though even then the exact form of exchange may remain unknown. Evidence becomes strongest when methods agree. The scale changed when communities settled, farmed, stored food, and produced specialized goods. Villages could accumulate grain, pottery, textiles, livestock products, and tools made by skilled craftspeople. Several households might contribute to a communal store that later supported a feast, a building project, or families facing shortage. Repeated village-to-village exchange created more obligations than personal memory could easily track. Counting, standard measures, and recognizable forms became increasingly useful. The problem changed before money fully emerged. Administration slowly joined trust as infrastructure. That shift did not turn every valued object into money. The process had stages. First came a shared valuable, something desired for use, rarity, or social meaning. When it changed hands regularly, it became an exchange good. It moved closer to commodity money only when people accepted it, partly because others would accept it later. Standard shapes or weights then made pieces easier to compare and count. A unit of account could measure value even when no object changed hands. Money emerged through layers, not invention. During the early Bronze Age in Central Europe, thousands of metal rings, rib-shaped bars, and axe-like objects were made in forms and weights similar enough to suggest standardized value. In other regions, cowrie shells later served related roles. Once recognizable forms carried value, copies appeared in bone, stone, clay, or metal. Some may have been accepted substitutes or ritual objects, others may have deceived. Archaeology can test weight and composition, but intention is far harder to recover than material. Recognition created both efficiency and opportunity. Return to the shopping mall. Your phone completes the purchase because banks, digital records, laws, and payment networks stand behind it. You can buy from someone you have never met and may never see again. Prehistoric exchange relied on another kind of network. Memory, reputation, family ties, recurring meetings, shared valuables, and obligations carried through time. Long before money connected strangers, relationships connected communities. Those relationships moved goods, knowledge, and trust farther than any one person could travel. That network was humanity's first payment system.